City Attorney. In light of the fact, Andy, that there was on video so much interesting events that took place in our last meeting, we felt it appropriate to help you in your drinking habits. So if you would.
You need a sippy cup.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll keep the recording around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really thoughtful.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us for tonight's City Council meeting, May 15th, 2018. We'll begin. I'd like to welcome you all, as I stated. Also, we'd like to just roll call that Councilmember Yeoman, Councilmember Burrell, Councilmember Saxton, and Councilmember Paul are in attendance. Councilmember Tafoya, I believe, is overseas this week, and so we'll miss him and give him an update in terms of how this meeting goes. So with that, we'd like to ask Councilmember Saxton to go ahead and lead us in a motion of silence and as well in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
If we could, just a moment. Thanks. Now, if we could stand. Repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Saxton. Okay, let's jump right into the consent items. We have the review of the May 1st, 2018 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any changes, adjustments, modifications from the council?
No. Mayor, I'd like to make a Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and we approve May 1st, 2018 City Council minutes as written.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Chief, we got a new member. Turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, City Manager, I'd like to introduce our newest officer. This gets us back up to full staff again. We had a retirement, and we're now back up to full staff. So I'd like to introduce Zach Jones. He comes to us from Weber County, Weber County Sheriff's Office. He's been a deputy there for 3 years, and so we're still taking the best from everybody else, and that's a good thing. So we're really glad to have him here, and so thanks for coming. You're welcome. Perfect. He's been with us now, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So we've already sworn him in, put him to work, and he's working shifts. So
perfect. So you've already taken care of that, Morgan?
Yeah, I don't know if I should do it again.
Yeah, we can do it again.
Okay. So let's do it in front of the council if that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll do the swear-in.
Looks like your family wants to take pictures, so. No, you face her.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, well, yeah.
I state your name.
I, Zachary Jones,
Having been elected
or appointed
to the office of
to the office of
police officer,
police officer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Well done.
Thank you.
Welcome. We need to have you introduce your family.
They can just stand where they're at and introduce them. Who do you have with us?
This is my girlfriend, Veronica.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And it looks like we have a baby.
Yep. That's his. That's Cameron.
Oh, that's Cameron.
Okay.
Mine's still in the bell.
Okay.
In the oven.
Okay. Well, welcome. We appreciate you. Comments from the council?
No, welcome aboard.
Just welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Chief,
It's great to
just
have
like
you.
Chief, just like you stated, we're now in a position where we're able to attract officers from other agencies to come and join us, and a lot of that is contributed, you know, to our salaries and also to the way that you've been able to put together your department. So that's neat. Welcome
Nice
aboard.
team.
Well said.
thanks.
Well said. Okay, thank you. Okay, we got a couple of interesting pieces of information we want to share. We're going to begin with the presentation. Do we have that so we can bring it up? We're in the process of doing that now. Okay. There it is. Okay. Let me, if I can, just if you'll click the first chart, I just want to talk about this chart just for a second. It may be a little hard for some of you to read, but I think in the discussion about this particular property, there's a couple of things I wanted to make sure was kind of known by the individuals here. The reason for that is that I suspect some of you have a vested interest in this, and as a result, I think we need to understand where we are on this. This particular piece of property, as it sits right now, is actually zoned community commercial zoning. What that basically means is that it's actually commercial zone, but it also has some unique characteristics about it. First thing that allows under the zoning, a building can actually have a height of 40 feet. And typically, if there's a parking lot involved, the parking lot light height is about 20 feet. These are all part of the zone today. Now, as we assess the things that are actually listed here, these are the ones that are authorized by statute right now to actually be at this location. So you can have assisted living facilities, nursing, you can have commercial nurseries, you can have convenience stores. As you can indicate, you can actually have tattoo body art shops. You can have medical facilities, mortuaries, you can have some commercial, recreational, indoor and outdoor, you can have the theater, you can have a reception center, and of course you can sell cars, both used and new and new cars at this location. So I want to basically kind of understand exactly what currently is authorized today at this location. And why is that important? And the reason why that's important is because for a commercial entity developer to come in, they don't have to bring this to city council. The zoning requirements today says they can do anything that's on that list today, and they take it right through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission will then go ahead and allow that to take place. That development will occur with no involvement from the council at all. Now, that's okay. In fact, a lot of things we do, that's the way it's designed to do. But there's a petition in front of us now to kind of rethink this, and we're going to talk that here in a second, but I want to set the baseline here. What I do want to point out is the things that are in red. And why those things in red are important you should consider is that either in the West Haven or the Roy area right now, we have those, which kind of creates a little bit more of a competition. For an example, there are a number of assisted living facilities located in these general areas. We definitely have our banks, we have our credit unions, and Councilman Paul, we do have a series of car washes.
We have an abundance of car washes.
That's another conversation. The ones in red are probably going to be a little bit more problematic for wanting to go at this location for a couple of reasons. Even a convenience store, surprisingly, just north of this particular place on the corner of 4,000 and Midland is actually a nice piece of property that is also for sale, that the convenience store probably would find a better location. I should indicate too, if you're not know this, but in terms of the statute, it simply says tattoo and body art. We only allow one of those facilities in the city per 10,000 residents. So today, since the census basically reports we're sitting right around 38,000 people, there can only be 3 of those in the entire city. And it won't be until the next census that comes up we'll be able to go ahead and consider bringing another one of those into the city by statute. It's an interesting one. I want to share that with you. We got a lot of medical and dental facilities. In fact, at this particular location we're going to talk about, there is already a dental facility. And hotels, motels, kind of isolated to put a hotel, motel down at that particular end of the city. They're much more favorable to be up close to, up by the freeway and up on the main business area. We definitely have a number of commercial recreational facilities. Brand new one just went into Clinton, right there on the border. The VASA facility is a rather nice facility, but with our own complex as well as the two that are up on there, we have those. And then surely a theater is an option and even looked at. But we have seen information that, just to give you a heads up, if we look at a theater, we're probably looking at least 40 to 60 parking spaces per screen. And the latest information we received from a business that's looking at theaters, if they bring one to Roy, and we're working this issue from a couple of different directions, to be very honest with you, they want 10 to 12 screens. To be a first-run theater, they got to get up to the 10 to 12 screens in order to make it profitable. So that puts an awful lot of parking on that, but there is space there to put parking in. And of course, the challenging piece is the issue in terms of vehicle or equipment sales or rental. Even the conversation we had with people in Salt Lake that are in the commercial business indicated that some businesses demand that particular business be right on the roads by which they can get full visibility. Much like you see parking when they're selling cars and stuff, they put those cars right there on the main roads for people driving by to see. This particular piece of property has some challenges with that. As I stated earlier, there is a better piece of property just north of there that's fully available and for sale that could be utilized in terms of doing that. So I share this information with you just to give you an understanding of why we're here and what the conversation is and what we got. According to the applicant on this, for 9 years, they've attempted to try to bring some commercial business at this location and had some struggles doing so, in large part because of the location of this property relative to the main roads in that area. So having said that, I think what we need to do at this point is just let's have the conversation. Why we're having this conversation now, if I can just simplify it, is the council members ask a series of questions to the applicant after the first and second time they presented their package. At this point, they were given the answers. Those were in the packet that was sent out to both the council members as well as the public in an effort to answer those questions. And at this moment, what we want to do is just finish the discussion and then with the applicant, answer any questions the council might have. And at that moment, then we have to make a decision, and we'll go to that point. And so with that then, Mr. Heiner, you're the applicant. If you'll take a second and please talk to us about the information you've presented to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to present. It's a pleasure to be with you, council, people, and staff. Let's, Steve, if you could put up that first slide of the project, that would be helpful. The one that shows the whole project. Right there. There we go. Okay, so just quickly, I'd like to review where we've been on this project. Everything inside the red line would be what we're calling our phase 2. Okay? Everything between the red line and 4000 South and Midland Drive are what we would have as phase 1. And those buildings included Jiffy Lube, McDonald's, Maverick, O'Reilly's, a couple of dentist offices, and we have one lot that's not built on yet. But that would be our phase 1 and tier 1 of this project. Phase 2 would be the commercial portion, would be the salmon-colored buildings. Those would be those that are either under construction or to be constructed, right? And the one that is under construction, of course, is the car wash. The others would be to be constructed. That would be tier 2. That's about 300 to 600 feet back from Midland Drive and 4000 South. So it still has reasonable marketing access for those people that would occupy those buildings. The property behind that is anywhere from 600 to 1,000 feet back, and that would be our what we call tier 3, and we're proposing a mixed use for this phase 2 of both commercial and residential. So the phase 2 commercial, those in Salmon, would represent about 50,000 square feet of commercial buildings, and that would be in tier 3. That's shown in the green and golden color would be the townhomes that we're proposing. They're about 78. Just from an overall perspective, when the project is complete, we will total about 100,000 square feet of commercial space and the 78 townhomes. About 2/3 of the project will be commercial, and about 1/3 will be residential. So we're proposing a mixed use project in phase 2. From our last meeting and since that meeting and during the meeting, there were several questions raised and suggestions made that we might incorporate in this project. They were the following. We talked about side yards, what we might do to increase the side yards. All of the side yards have been increased to at least 25 feet. Okay? The rear yards, we were asked if we could orient them away from the residential, single-family residential to the east and south. We've done that in every case possible. Obviously, when you get to a corner, either way you face it, right? You're backing to a building. But we've minimized any exposure to backyards on adjacent single-family projects. There was we've asked for a reduction in building heights. This particular zone that we're asking for allows up to 3 stories. We've reduced them to 2. And there was also a request for a possible reduction of units, which we have done as well. There were 3 additional questions that I hope we've addressed well in the packet. There was a question of density. For example, there was a question of why in the world, with a city that's high on the list of population dense cities, why would we add more residential, especially higher density residential? And I hope our discussion helped clarify that statistic a little bit. Royce City is really not a high-density city. It's a city that's built out, has very little property left now for development. And if you look at that list, there are other cities like Kearns, Orem, and other cities that are likewise about the same age that are also built out. And that's why they make that list. So cities like Salt Lake, which has high concentrations of multifamily, high-density housing, doesn't make the list. Provo doesn't make the list. Orem makes the list because they're surrounded by cities and they're built out. So hopefully that clarifies that statistic. Traffic was a discussion item, and we have consulted many traffic engineers over the years. The last one we talked to regarding this project was Hales Traffic Engineers, who indicate that in almost every case, commercial development will exceed the traffic produced by residential development. But the very best scenario for any kind of traffic minimization is to have mixed use, where we have housing located close to public transportation as well as businesses, so we can promote walk traffic instead of car traffic. Perhaps we could, Steve, just flip to the slide on the townhomes. Just show them what they. This is a project that we built or developed quite a few years ago, but you can see the type of project that we had a slide of last time was a 3-story. This one is a 2-story. It's a garage type project. I think some have raised the question, well, and have expressed a concern that we don't want to have a rental project. But I can tell you, when you start developing these kinds of townhomes, the size and double car garages, it doesn't pencil for rentals. These are developed to be sold. Okay. They also, whenever you sell them, you also means that you then have an HOA, homeowners association, so that all of the grounds are maintained in common. And I would love for you to see all of the projects that we've developed in terms of what the grounds look like. We've got a twin home project in American Fork that, frankly, is in a declining neighborhood. But ours is maintained all in common, and it still looks as good today as it did the day we built it 20 years ago. Could you flip to those other commercial slides? This is the type of structures we would anticipate having in phase 2, tier 2 of that project. Those commercial buildings that were in the salmon color just directly back from those on the main roads. This is a building we built for Culinary Crafts. They're one of the very best caterers in the state. Flip to the next one. This is a hair salon, nail salon, all that kind of stuff. I don't know a lot about that. I haven't been in those, but that's what goes on there, I think. And then the next one. This one shows some more of the type of structures we'd anticipate there. We've got a dance studio, a hardware store, a dry cleaner, And one more. Steve, I think we had one more. Okay. Well, the other one was a building much like this one, where we have businesses like, well, there's a pie place, they manufacture pies, and they sell them out the front and they ship them all over the state and in other states. So those are the type of business we anticipate in that second tier. Maybe we could flip to the property tax revenue slide. Okay. This one, just want to point out that the revenue, taxable revenue, property tax revenue generated by townhomes on this particular site with the R4 zoning would be about $260,000 over 5 years. If it were office buildings, which is probably really the only conceivable possibility for that tier 3 that would have any hope of being successful, would generate about less than half of that, around $100,000 in property tax revenue. And I can tell you, as one who's been in this business for the last 40 years, a retail business in tier 3 would be a financial disaster for the business, for us as developers, and for Roy City, because there would be no successful business operating back there, a retail, in that tier 3. So that's why we're proposing this particular, making this mixed-use proposal. In conclusion, I would just say that we have made adjustments to our proposal to accommodate questions and concerns of council members. We appreciate those. There were some great ideas. We feel that this proposal is good for Roy. It's a moderate approach to what has been proposed through Focus Roy City. In fact, I was looking through that again today, and they had what they called some possible development scenarios. There were 3 that they proposed. One was basic, which is basically status quo. There's no change to zoning and no change to infrastructure. There was a more moderate approach where there was some moderate catalytic type investment and development by the city in improvements to encourage more multi-use projects, and then zoning to go along with that. And then there was another one that was more of an intense use, where the proposal was to use higher, more population intense development, high density units, as well as pretty significant infrastructure by the city to attract those kinds of things. I was interesting to note that as I read the study once again, that the community, the members that participated in this study, those members of your community, leaned towards the moderate approach. And so our approach and proposal here meets that very moderate approach. So we feel like it's good for neighboring properties. It provides a transition between the single-family residential and the commercial. The commercial allows us to build right up to 10 feet to the property line. Buildings that are quite high, lights that go on, and I can tell you that, I'm not telling you anything new, but commercial right against single-family residential is not a good marriage. We feel like it's good for the businesses that we'll have there. We're locating many patrons in housing within walking distances of our businesses, which will help make them successful. So we're asking that you support us in this effort so that we can move ahead with both our commercial and our residential development. It's a little tough for us to go back and put in those salmon buildings without knowing what we would do on the back part of the site. Then we end up with something we can't do anything with. So that's why we're here. And we feel like that this is a proposal consistent with your existing code as well as with your Focus Roy City. Are there any questions that you have that I could address?
Council, any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so I've served on the council. I'm going on 4 years. And still, I feel like I'm not on. Am I on? And so I've dealt with many of these vacant lots that we've had in the city, trying to figure out what we're going to do on them. There was one particular property that we had down in the west of Roy. It was also zoned community commercial, and it was it was a property that access was a little rough to it. It ended up being where it was decided that the proponents there tried to also sell their property for over 10 years, couldn't get anybody commercial-wise to come in to purchase the property, had a really hard time with it. Basically, they couldn't afford to sell the property tax on it anymore, and they needed to just try to get rid of it. It was actually voted 3-2 to go ahead, and we put townhomes in there. So we got rid of commercial space in Roy and put in, we didn't put in townhomes, we actually kind of put in apartment buildings. But one of the arguments was we gave up commercial space again. You know, we gave up commercial space, and the whole thing is we've been talking as council, and it's every year with new people on the council and everything is we've got to build our sales tax. We've got to be able to build our our commercial base in our city. Well, if we keep giving away our commercial space for more residential, it's not, that to me sometimes defeats the purpose of we want, because we don't have that much space in Roy to do that. Looking at this property, it falls, that's where my heart, I actually voted against it to put the apartments in there. This is going against my heart again to give away commercial property for Roy to go to more residential development. But on the upside, so this is some of my arguments and some of my, I thank you so much for taking our considerations and taking our questions and everything and going back and revamping your property. I appreciate you changing the setbacks. I appreciate you lowering the height restrictions. I appreciate you doing all of that. Mixed use. We are looking at, in the city, bringing in mixed use to our city. That is something we're looking at. Yes, this development falls into that type of mixed use development. Yes, it falls exactly into our Focus Roy, where you're mixing mixed use with commercial in a development area. Yes, it also goes with what the moderate or kids want now. They don't want the single family homes anymore. They want to go more of these townhome apartment type living. It falls into all of that, and I'm not arguing any of that, and I do again appreciate everything that you've been trying to do. I do want to, when you talk about tier 1, tier 2, that kind of still, I don't know if I quite understand that, and that's what I kind of need to have explained to me more, because you talk about that tier 3 is actually like a suicide for any type of development going, you know, back in that area, and I guess I need to know a little bit about it. Okay, so I take in, I look at Riverdale Road. So Riverdale Road right now in Riverdale City, they just recently put in that strip area, you know, where now all the businesses, where Chipotle, everybody knows where I'm at, right? So they're next to the road, and then their parking's all in the center. So I know that that's the way the new developments are going, where your businesses are on the outside, and then all your shared parking, and then that is in the center. So when I look at this project, if you look at it, you can see where we have businesses already on the outer side of it. So I don't see why more businesses can't go along the back side of it to be able to then have more shared parking in the middle. The other thing is, I know that there's an argument that it's not good to butt up commercial against residential. We've had that multiple times in the city. We've been able to work out lighting. We've been able to work out fencing. We've been able to work out things as far as like to be able to help the residents around it so that it makes it easier, you know, for the commercial. So that's not a, to me, I can argue the opposite. I do understand traffic, because I've heard it all before. Yes, your commercial brings in more traffic, possibly than residential. My biggest thing that I have just a hard time with is giving up commercial property, again in Roy, that we try to fight so much for to be able to increase our sales tax and increase our economic growth that we all seem to campaign on every year, that's what we want to do, is to build our economic development to give up commercial property. So right now, you haven't given me a good enough argument for me to go with it. I need to see what it would be like to see a drawing or rendition of commercial around the outside of it. This property, Walmart supposedly has been going across the street in West Haven for years and years and years. There's been rumors that it's going in, then it's not, and then there is and it's not. And I think sometimes it was like we kept giving the argument, well, once Walmart gets in there, then there's all these businesses that want to go around Walmart. They don't want to be in Walmart's parking lot, but they want to be around Walmart. And you can see that right now in Clinton. Clinton's doing the very same thing. These businesses are going around. So we've been kind of holding off on it, and I keep thinking that that's something that's going to come. I don't know. I'm just having a...
Hey, can I respond to that then?
Yeah.
Sure. Let me, you've asked a lot of questions. I've made
Sorry,
some notes
I
here,
was
I'll
ready.
try to catch those. If I miss something, you let me know,
'Kay.
okay? I'm going to start with an article from Forbes magazine, okay, that I think tells us a little bit about why things are happening the way they are in communities and why retail is struggling like it is right now. Over 80% of buyers, or all potential buyers, purchase online now.
And I
51%
can see that.
51% of all purchases are made online. And so our buying practices are changing. And the way people buy, where they go to the store, how they do things is totally changing. What that means then, if you look at, let me just give you a couple of examples. Trolley Square, which has been a shopping icon for decades, bankrupt. And the developer came in and bought that, and has now made a proposal and is moving ahead to bring in what? High-density housing as a method of saving that project. He'll do it because he's bringing the customers to the project,
Yeah,
right?
I did read that article.
University Mall, which is probably is it in Orem or Provo? I guess it's Orem, is probably one of the very best mall developments in the whole state. And they've lost large anchor store after anchor store and have been struggling. And I hand it to Woodbury's. What they're doing right now, let me just see if I can give you a quick little rundown on what they're doing. Mr. Woodbury, in his own words, University Place is now called, will include the following: 1,500 housing units, including rental apartments, condos, townhomes, provide an on-site residential option, 600,000 square feet of office, puts jobs in the convenience of mixed-use development. 120-room hotel provides accommodations for visitors and business travelers. A 2-acre civic plaza and park, outdoor music, bike venue, blah, 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 blah. Woodbury's evolution of this site into a rich, diverse, mixed-use town center where people can live, work, shop, and play, and provide a choice of living and so on. So the whole idea now is in order to keep these businesses viable is to bring the people to them. And that's one answer. So let me just respond to the others.
And I understand that. I think that, I mean, but I look at, Clinton, Riverdale. I mean, they've got all these new stores that are going in.
Okay,
you know, so I mean, so there's commercial still being able to be built.
I agree, and frankly, when you're on a council in a town that's a little bit older, like this one is, you have a challenge. That is a tough job, and frankly, you're going to make some tough decisions. But what we proposed here is exactly what you're talking about. We proposed a circle of businesses with parking in the middle. The problem is we end up with property behind that we don't know what to do with. And so it's been difficult for us to move ahead, and so we've continued to market to big box users. We've called everyone in this state, even those without the state, trying to get a big box user to come here. The answer is always the same. The site is too small for a big box, and we look at it, it's too large for just that type of development. So I always end up with something left over, and I'm stuck. I'm at a stalemate as to what to do. So what we're proposing here is exactly what you're talking about. We're talking about a circle of businesses with parking in the center.
Well, and it makes sense because tier one is your road front businesses.
Correct.
You have parking in the middle, and then you have your next set of businesses, which are set back into tier two.
I understand that. I just have a heartache giving up commercial space.
Here with no street visibility at all. It's just, it's a train wreck. I wouldn't dare do it. I wouldn't dare build a building and try to market that to anyone.
And I don't want,
Successful.
yeah, that's the last thing I want is empty strip malls. You know, I mean, we already have a couple of strip malls already in Roy with empty spaces, and so that's the last
Yeah,
thing
and
I
this
want.
This isn't a strip mall. I call it a strip center. These are flex retail spaces. They're sort of in a row, so I use that term strip. But frankly, this is what you're talking about here, where you have the buildings around the outside and you have the parking in the middle. I just end up with something here I need to do something with. And frankly, I think it's a great way to use a mixed-use application because it does bring patrons to these businesses and they're going to love it. And it's going to help me market these and be a lot more successful at what's going on here. Because
I still don't.
these are not single-family users. These are our millennials, a lot of them, and they like walking to public transportation. I was shocked when I talked to my grandson, and his friend was 17 and he couldn't come and pick him up. Doesn't have a driver's license. I said, "Are you kidding me?" When I was 16, I couldn't wait to get a driver's license. Right? A lot of these kids don't even want a driver's license.
One of the questions I have, maybe it'll help ease some of Carlene's concerns. One of my concerns is, what is your strategy for building in there? My fear is, I'll tell you what my fear is, and you can tell me what your strategy is. My fear is you go build the townhomes, and then the commercial gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and never gets developed.
That's why I showed you the pictures of what I've had here. Those are back in tier two. All of these that I took pictures of and brought with me today are all tier two businesses. They've been very successful. I can't build those fast enough. People love them because a lot of those people are people that are mail order stuff as well as storefront.
Would
Why can't
the
more of them go in?
projects, both the townhomes and the commercial property, would they be marketed concurrently so that you are working on both?
As soon as I have some zoning so I know what I can sell, I'll begin marketing everything we have.
So,
But right
Carlene,
now I don't dare because I don't know what I can do. Right?
I believe what I
So
heard.
yes, to answer your question, yes, they will be marketed concurrently.
They will be.
Will be.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Jan, you had a question.
I believe what I heard you say, Carlene, is why wouldn't you put more of those? And my question is can we market those if we don't have residential? And what
You're
I'm
surrounded
hearing,
by residential. That's what I'm getting.
but not walking residential, not the type of residential that might be attracted to those.
If you can walk, if he's saying you can walk from here to the front runner, and you're marketing these townhomes because you're marketing them because they're within walking distance to the front runner, so are those residential homes right there. They're also within walking distance of the front runner.
How many of them are using
So,
that?
but that doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't make a difference if you're in a townhome or an apartment living person, or if you're a single family home. You're still within walking distance of the front runner.
The demographic is a little different.
And it might be. It might be to where they're.
Those people who are buying these tend to be more of the people who will use the public transportation. Where, frankly, I live in a single-family home. I'm probably not going to get on the front runner.
Well,
I don't know that I've answered all your questions, but I hope.
I mean, like I said, it fits within our focus area. It fits within our mixed use. I mean, everything that you've done, you've adjusted all your site plans to be able to make sure that we feel better about the project and that it's a good transition from the residential, from the
Sure.
single family homes to the commercial. You've done all of that. I'm sorry, but I just still have a heartache giving up commercial property
Well, and
here in
I'm
Roy.
sure as, you know, and that's what you're here for.
That's
your
okay.
council
That's
assignment and your responsibility.
yeah.
The other thing I would say to that is that's not what your people are asking for in Focus Roy. So if you're representing the people, you'll want to represent what is in Focus Roy City.
But there is places in the city that I feel that Focus Roy might be better used.
Well,
or
and
be
there
able to
might
work.
be.
This one,
There might be. The plan showed this area and downtown as the two focused areas.
Because I've worked
I'm
on
sorry,
I've worked on the general plan for years, and this has always been zone this property, and, I mean, commercial, and I don't know. I'm having
And
a
I,
hard.
you know, the only thing I would say in addition to what I've already said is, if you look at the depth of this property and follow that all the way down Midland Drive, or all the way up 4,000 South, it's a lot deeper than the other properties.
I drive this way to work every day, and so I see, you know, I look at the property, and I was envisioning your tier 1, tier 2,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, kind of doing all of that,
Sure.
and, yeah, so
fact-
I've looked at it, I've thought about it, and, like, again, I do appreciate everything that you've
I
done to
appreciate
be
your
able to
consideration,
change
I really
that.
do. I'm convinced the only reason that back property is even zoned commercial is because it was under the same ownership when that happened.
And that,
And
you're
those
right,
people,
yep,
and
yep.
they were
Yep,
just
you're-
selling it,
you're
and frankly, the
correct.
commercial is
Yeah,
worth more than the
you're
residential,
correct.
so they said, I'm for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a question, Brian?
Or Joe
Well,
did.
I have a couple.
Okay?
First of all, the townhomes, what kind of price range are you looking on selling those at? Are they 2, 3 bedroom, 1 bedroom? Do you have a mix?
We would probably have a mix. We haven't even gotten that far, Brian.
Okay,
But I suspect that they would be high 2s to high 3s, probably.
In pricing, he's talking
Yeah.
1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom.
right, and he's saying they're not that far.
Yeah, high 200s to high $300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
I'm
what
saying.
you said.
Yeah, yeah,
I wanted
Yeah.
to mix
yeah,
your
yeah,
two
yeah,
comments.
yeah.
Okay,
So in your developments like that, do you anticipate families? Do you anticipate singles? Do you anticipate a mix?
young couples, what?
I think we'll have a mix, really. I do. I think we'll have probably some couples. I think we'll have some singles. I think we'll have young families. In our townhomes in American Fork, we have families with teenage kids even. But most of them are millennials.
Okay.
And there are 78 properties
78.
proposed
Uh-huh.
here.
Yeah. That's
So you took
that's
3,
about 11 and a half an acre.
4.
So, yeah.
you took 4 units away?
Uh-huh. That's right.
So roughly, you left $1.2 million on the table because those are 4
I
units.
didn't even think about that.
Well, I do. I'm an old reporter.
Yeah, sure.
One of the comments I had to go along with this, you know, the mayor and I had the opportunity to go visit a development fairly similar to this down in Holiday, which I look at Holiday as a city that's pretty built out. They're redeveloping now, and it had a really good look and feel to it. It had businesses out in the front, businesses in the middle, and then it had multifamily housing in the back, butted up against single-family housing, and it really had a good look and feel. I mean, I do like the fact that, you know, I was one of the concerns about the height with the people behind you, that they weren't looking over big properties. I was concerned how close you were to the fence. You've moved it. I mean, I feel that you've done quite a bit to make it look and feel good for everybody. My biggest concern was I just didn't want you to go drop the housing in there and then say, well, we can't develop the commercial, and then you have all the commercial property that sits vacant, and now nobody wants it because it's buried right in the middle of multiple different uses.
Yeah, good
I
question.
think there's a pretty good market for the type of things that I just showed you. I have, just this week already, I've had 3 or 4 people call my office wanting to buy those units that I have in Pleasant Grove, and I don't have any to sell.
And let me just add to the conversation, not putting any bias or spin on it. We just walked out of a meeting, Jason and I and Brian walked out of a meeting in Salt Lake today, talking to a commercial developer and asking the hard questions as we start to set the stage and how we're going to send Royse City. And these are the interesting comments they made, who happen to be in a position where they know. They did indicate Walmart is selling that property. And more importantly, they said they're selling it, they're going to put a limitation that no grocery store development will be able to build in that property. They'll sell it, but they won't let them be a competition, which I thought was an interesting statement. So they'll put a provision in that. We're hearing a developer make that comment. And then he made an interesting comment, and I didn't make the connection until just the comment you just made. He says they cannot build enough flex space to fill all the demand. It's just absolutely off the charts, particularly down in the Salt Lake and Utah counties, but they can't build enough of that. And what I think I heard you say would be is, these are going to give the flexibility that businesses may need in that tier 2 area is what you're talking about. So let me ask this. Council, any other questions? Anything else for John in terms of your thoughts on this? Because we really need to make a decision here of what we want to do. And so, other thoughts?
I appreciate you guys taking
Thank you.
the time to think about this and take a look at it for us. We've struggled with it for 10 years.
Okay. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. Okay. Council? Okay. Let me walk through this with you. And Andy, I'm going to ask for some advice, make sure we're on target. This doesn't happen often, but it's a conversation that need to happen in large part because we had council members indicating they'd like to discuss this a little further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call for a vote on the council to rescind a particular motion that took place on March 6th, and that was the denial of the ordinance of 18-1. And we're going to take a 18-4, excuse me, and I need a vote on that. We go nowhere unless we get a vote. Okay? Are we okay with that? So here's the motion. And we need a motion and a second. So I need a motion to rescind the Royse City Council March 6, 2018 denial of the ordinance 18-4, a request to amend the general plan future land map from commercial to high, very high density multifamily residential for property located approximately 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a
that
second?
we rescind.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. This is going to be, it's not going to be a roll call vote. This is, all those that concur, all those who are willing to concur, say aye.
Aye.
All those who basically deny, say nay.
Nay?
Nay.
Okay? That's a tie vote.
The mayor can vote on ties.
What's that?
The mayor can vote on ties.
That's how it works. Okay? Then, as a mayor, I'm going to vote to basically rescind the Royse City Council March 6th denial of ordinance. So having said that, now I'm going to take a motion to reconsider the proposed ordinance number 18-4, amendment to the general plan future land use map from commercial very high to high density multifamily residential for property located approximately 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive. This is a roll call vote. Oh, excuse me, I need a motion. So somebody give me a motion. Motion to approve that ordinance amendment, 18-4.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Thank you, Morgan. Go ahead.
All right, Councilmember Yeoman,
No.
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Councilmember Saxton,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell.
Nay.
Okay, that's a tie vote. The mayor has the right on a tie vote to vote. I vote for it. So therefore, we just voted to basically approve the amendment of the general plan. The last piece of this is consideration of proposed ordinance number 18-5, the amendment to the zoning map from commercial, let's see, it's actually community commercial, to R-4 multifamily residential for property located approximately 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
Is that family or high density, very high density?
R4 is basically referred to as,
Multifamily.
The general plan is what classifies it as very high density.
That's
The
what-
zoning
that's
just
what I
says
was
R4.
R4,
Okay.
which is multifamily.
But it also says in there, very high density, is that correct?
It does on the general plan, but it doesn't necessarily have that on the zoning,
Okay.
okay?
Right.
So do I have a motion? Motion to approve the, the proposed ordinance number 18-5, amendment to the zoning map from community commercial to R4 for property located approximately 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have
to
a second?
approve that ordinance.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Nay.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Nay.
and Councilmember Paul.
Yay.
And the mayor?
I didn't hear that last one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a tie vote. Mayor has the option on tie votes. I'm going to vote in favor of the proposed change, okay? We don't, let me just indicate to you, we don't normally do it this way, but in absence of a lot more information that came in, questions answered, we felt, at least a council member felt it was something to bring back to the discussion. We've done that, and in this case, the motion now has been approved to go ahead and make the general plan adjustment and also make the zoning map adjustment, okay, accordingly. So that's the direction that came out of the council, okay? Now, a lot of information. Sorry for that. Having got through that, now we have just basic public comments. If you have anything you would like to discuss, anything you'd like to bring to the council, please step up to the mic, give us your name and your address, and we'll try to entertain your conversation. Thank you.
Hello, Council, Mayor Dandoy, and Mr. Heiner. My name's Inger Booth, and I moved into Royce City in 1996 when I was a young family on West Lake Drive and went through that development, lived and worked here at Royce City, was a receptionist, handed out lots of council packets back when you had to hand deliver them, and there was no IT. Lived here for a very long time and then lived in Syracuse for 6 years, rented the condos on 5600, and I'm right back on Lily Drive, 1 block east of where I started. So I just like to do a circle. My career has been, after I left Royce City, I was in the mortgage industry for 10 years. I've also worked at Market Star for 7. I'm involved in a lot of committees throughout the county and the state. I believe Mr. Heiner is doing the best thing for the use of this land. To address Council Member Burrell's and Council Member Yeoman's concerns. Our youth, the millenniums, as I lovingly refer to them to, they don't know how to park, but they really know how to use electronics. And they do need cheaper housing. And they are going for, as he said, townhomes, right? Something smaller. They don't want the big houses and the big yards and everything like that. We in Weber County need to attract high-tech business to Weber County. So right now, that county business, that business is going to the point of the mountain and over south where there's a pretty Adobe building and a lot of things like that. We are in Silicon Slopes. We do have a lot of tech. Market Star is one of the tech companies that a lot of young people start at. So right here is the tracks. There is mixed use. Downtown Ogden is becoming vibrant. There's mixed use there. There's commercial buildings with people above. Kids nowadays don't want to mow a lawn. And they don't want to, you know, take care of all that stuff. They don't. So I think for the vision for Royce City and Weber County, this is the best thing. Now, my concern to Mr. Heiner for the development, the median income in Weber County is $60,000. So housing, buying housings for our kids to come and live in Weber County, period, whether that be North Ogden, Pleasant View, Harrisville, Roy, is expensive. It often takes 2 incomes to do that. So my concern would be making those housings affordable, right, for them. Again, and we want to always put the land to highest and best use and also have a tax base so that we can generate income so that we can run our city, the 7.5 square miles that we live in. That's never going to grow because we're 7.5 square miles. So I thank you all for taking the time. I'm glad you're making the proposed changes. I haven't caught up on everything because there's a lot going on, and so I'm not going to bring it up because it'll start something else. But anyway, I think it's a great idea to use it. Mixed use is where it's going. Make it affordable. Make it so that kids will raise their families there. There's Daybreak. There's a million developments down south. We need to do things for Weber County. We need to do things for Roy that'll attract young kids, young people that want to make a great living and continue to live in our city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, anybody else would like to make public comments, please? Just your name and your address, please.
Okay, I'm Janelle Holbert, and I live on 4178 Westlake Drive. And I'm a millennial, older millennial, but millennial. And I will say right now that that neighborhood is full of millennials with young families. So that, I mean, I'm just saying that we already have a lot of that, and a lot of us do use the Front Runner. That was actually attractive to us to live, one reason that we liked the location. I totally agree with what Carlene, I can't say your last name.
It's okay.
Okay.
You just go, yo, man.
Yeah, yo, man, okay.
There you go.
I totally agree with those concerns, and from people I've talked to in the community, those are the concerns, just because we don't have anywhere else to go growing-wise. But I do think that what he's proposing is way better than what he was proposing.
I
And
agree with
so-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And so I do think that, especially where we're living just right there, this is a lot better than what was proposed before. So if it does go through, it's not as big of a, I guess,
Impact.
disappointment. I just know that a lot of people moving into Roy are very excited about trying to get it going business-wise, you know, and so that more people will stay here longer, and it's not just to come here, move away. So, been here almost 8 years now, so, and it's been great so far. We love our community. That community right there actually is really tight-knit. We have community neighborhood and a watch, and we have neighborhood yard sales. You know, we have a lot of good stuff going on there. So, but I do know that a lot of people living there are concerned with that exact thing that Jan and Carlene have brought up. And I know that all the other members are also concerned about those things. But I guess what I'm saying is we would prefer if we could have a bigger businesses move in there that would draw more people to Roy, but this is better than the last one. So I will say that that's basically what I'm trying to say. I talk a lot, so.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and one of
Thank
the
you.
things that, you know, I listen to people, some of the concerns around there, and that's why we tried to address it. Get the heights down.
Yeah, that was
Get them
something
away.
someone.
The other, honestly, I'm on the Economic Development Committee, so I understand commercial property. You want to know one of my biggest fear? That if we turn this down, we will get this many developers wanting to come to Roy.
Yeah.
Because the message we're sending is, we don't want you. We
just
want
want
car
it a certain
washes.
way, yeah.
And so if we don't change our message and our perception, we're never going to get anybody to come to Roy,
Well,
other
and-
than car washes.
Yeah.
And
We have a
we've
lot of
got plenty
those.
of them, so.
At least they
If
look
you're a car wash
nice, you
owner,
know.
I apologize.
There's no weeds there.
Yes, there's no more weeds, so that's good. But, yeah, so we appreciate what you guys are
Well,
trying
we're trying to do.
Yes.
well, to add to that, I serve on the same economic board as Councilmember Paul. And it was in light of Mr. Heiner making changes and pulling those townhomes away from the people that already lived there. That was my big concern. But after going through the city budget process, which we're still going through, I developed another concern, and that was, how are we going to maintain the very things that this community wants us to put in place if we don't step up our efforts and increase our tax revenues? And I know he didn't mention it, but I think the first 5 years, is it the first 5 years? It's $260,000 to our coffers, not including any commercial revenues, right?
Right, so we've missed $500,000 already in the last 10 years.
One of the other,
And that was just too, no, it was just, for me, that was just too much to leave on the table for Clinton or Layton or Riverdale to grab. And so one of us had to fall on our sword up here. And I don't mind it being me. Just please, Mr. Heiner, find me a place to live if this doesn't work out.
or a burial plot for him.
And let me ask you, Councilmember Sexton, would you just reiterate to the group exactly your conversation with Mayor of Layton, Bob Stevenson, on this particular issue?
The mayor of Layton told, because this is, when it's all done, it'll be roughly a $20 million investment.
Yeah, on the town, just the townhomes, yeah.
Oh, just the townhome side. So it'll be more than more than a $20 million private dollar investment into this community. Something I cannot remember that we have had. And when I talked to the mayor of Layton, all he wanted to know was, when you turn that down, will you let him know that we're interested? And the point is that we have to compete, and if we don't compete in another 2 years, we're going to be coming back before you same folks and saying, gosh, we need another tax increase. And you know what? When I knocked on doors, I promised no more taxes. We were going to make it work. And it's projects like this that will make it work.
And I know I've seen you online on Facebook. I know you're advocating for what people want. So I know that you're not just doing this to, that you're carefully considering these things.
The other concern or fear I had actually for the citizens was, this was zoned community commercial, which means you can put an assisted living. It was talked about an assisted living. He could have erected a 3-story assisted living right next to your property line without even getting approval from us. And so I felt like I was grateful that we were able to morph it into what it is today, that I think it's a collaborative approach for all of us. I think it helps everybody. There are probably going to be hard feelings. I realize that. I'm not here for popularity. We have to make hard decisions, and to try to balance the feelings of everybody, I think we did the best with what we have.
Definitely better than it was.
Thank you for your comments,
Thanks
okay?
for your comment.
Anybody else would like to come up? Judy, your name and address, please.
Judy Cottom. I live on 2715 West, 4800 South in Roy. And I'm sorry, but I love where I live. I'm 71 years old. I've lived in Roy my whole life. And my friends that live up on the hill in Salt Lake, all over Los Angeles, everywhere, ask me, why do you live in Roy? And the reason I do is I love it. I love the community. I love the people. I love, how we stand up for each other and watch each other's backs. I like to work hard, and I do. I have 2 acres right there in Roy. 4800 is really busy, and there's a lot to put up with, and I still won't move. But if we keep getting things like this, yeah, I'll move. I had a good offer a couple of years ago. It wasn't quite $1 million, but it was $750,000. And I turned it down because that's how much I love living in Roy. Working with the mayor and you guys and just being here my whole life. My grandfather built one of the first, I think it was the first home in Roy. And it's still there.
Interesting.
And I've gone through every store, everything. And I'm sorry, I love money. I spend a lot of it like I have it. But money's not always the answer to me. And the children or the age group that they're talking about that will live in these homes, that they want tracks and they want this and they want that. It's simple, they don't have cars. Yet on the other hand, they said they want them to stay here because they'll have families. No, they won't. There won't be any place to have a family. If we keep doing this, we lose that small community. And if you take the numbers, we don't need all that. We can't fit it in here. The reason we live here is because there aren't all those numbers. And when you build this type of building compared to other types, you attract, and this is true because I know, weather. You know, you take away all your green and that, you're drier. Your air changes, your bugs change, your water changes, everything. And so I'm not for this at all because, I mean, I love to build. And I've lived in every type of home in Roy and that, and lived on 5600 in those the townhouses there for 11 years and landscaped them, made them number one, and then they did 5600 and changed a lot of things. But even with everything that's gone on, I'm still here. I want a family place. My granddaughter lives on my property, and all the neighbors there are great. Every store you go into, everybody's happy to know each other. I don't see people sitting on top of each other here. It's not my idea. Another thing is the traffic, and I can vouch for this. 4800, we all drive that, 5600. We're having problems now. So what are we going to do with how many units and how many cars? And don't tell me there's not going to be any cars and that they won't have families there. And then that type of building deteriorates, and then it becomes low income. So your tax thing will fall apart then. And sometimes it doesn't take as long as we think these days, too. Another thing is, yeah, this age group or this group of, you know, lifestyle, they'll move. They won't be able to build a home. And so, you know, I'm not for it at all. I want to make Roy better. I want to bring it back to how it used to be. We don't need the traffic on the roads. We don't need the air pollution. We just need to take care of what we've got and bring in a steakhouse.
And we're working on that, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, we are working.
And
wanna
I'll
start
tell you
one?
what, I'll put out
Maybe we can help you.
I'll put out the footwork and all the work, and I offered to do some things, and I'll help. I want to, I don't know what year it was. I already gave you my age, so you know it was a long time ago, but there was a thing, and I was on the committee with Roy City, and we won the national award in the United States, Roy City.
Yep.
And I was on the committee, and I worked with the people in Roy City. We had a riot, and we did it. We won the award, and they said it was the greatest city in the United States. I worked for Myers Mortuary for 25 years with Stephen Johnston and Richard Myers, and I loved every second of it. Did all their landscaping, I did all their places, and then I ended up just doing Roy. And we won the national award the second year for the best mortuary. And so I'm proud to say I'll work hard. I love to make it better, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else, any comments, questions, please? Your name and address, thank you.
Julie Little, 2966 West, 4275 South. So I was at the Planning Commission. I was here during the City Council meeting and then I listened to all the minutes for the next City Council meeting. And I don't know that I'm still happy with those townhomes and what it'll do to our property taxes and our property values, whether it'll take it down or take it up. I do think there needs to be some affordable housing. I've lived here 31 years, started in a little subdivision with 10 homes. And of course, now we have a great neighborhood, community around. So yes, he has made great changes, but I think it's only dropped the condos or townhomes only by 20 from the first proposal, I think. So it still seems like high density to me. So I would like to see fewer, but so yes, it's better, but maybe not. I'd still rather see commercial. But I know there has to be a compromise I don't see any other way but a compromise to come from it. So that's where I kind of stand.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else would like to make comment? Okay, having seen none, let's go ahead. We'll move into reports. City Manager's report, Jason?
Here's a discussion on fees regarding the city recreational facilities. Let's talk about the aquatic center and the complex. Mayor and I had a discussion about this week, and we wanted to bring it to the council for the council's opinion and the direction of maybe where we go. Some of those questions are Roy resident fees versus a non-Roy resident fees for the aquatic center and the complex. Also park fees. Are we charging AYSO and some of these other private groups that use these parks? Are we charging them a fee? And I talked with Travis a little bit to have him just kind of come up with some basic numbers. We also talked about the 90 to 95,000 people that use the complex on an annual basis. What percentage of them are paying customers? What percentage are not paying customers? And we bring it to the council for guidance, direction. I don't know if the mayor wants to key in on it or Travis wants to answer any of your questions. So I just told Travis basically get some basic numbers and just field some of the council's questions and see if it's something before I had him just spin his wheels, if it's something that we're okay with, if we're not okay with. So basically, it's your call.
If I can add to that, and then Travis, if you could kind of fill in for the council. The purpose of the discussion that Jason had would be is that, as we know, the complex, not so much the aquatic center, but the complex is scheduled to project to lose a little over $600,000 in this next budget year, and has lost a little over $600,000 the previous years. It drew our attention in large part because when we first did the analysis, Travis's team simply says there's 90,000 people walk through his complex every year. That's a lot of people. And when you think about that, the question is, with that many people going through, why is he basically still struggling in terms of trying to keep up and get it? You'll never be profitable, but hopefully not keep sliding. And that's a hard question. So the question then looks at in terms, are we charging the right fees? I had a resident came to me and simply says, tell me, Bob, he says, why in fact do the Riverdale people down there advertise that they basically can get access to our aquatic center a lot cheaper than our own residents? And it was figured out, in all fairness, is that Riverdale pays then Roy City at the non-resident fee rate and then only charge them half price. So every person in Riverdale today can walk into the city building, get a pass, and basically access our aquatic center for less money than our own residents can access because they pay for that. They actually use budget. I've always said, and you may or may not like this comment, but I think there's truth in this comment. Hooper, West Haven, and Riverdale have the finest parks, the finest aquatic center in Roy that they never paid for. Our residents pay for all of that, and yet they don't even get the same benefit. And so the question then becomes, and it's a good question to ask because it's caused me to ask the question, and Jason and Travis are looking at it, not to say we increase the price to our own residents, but are we basically providing what appears to be a fair price to the non-residents who are capitalizing on all of the infrastructure and expenses that Roy residents pay for? And we got the best parks, and we got the best aquatic center. I mean, they don't have to build the thing because they can come here. And Travis, help me, but I believe Riverdale actually even buys nights or buys some time in your facilities.
Can I ask one question before, Travis? Help me understand. So Riverdale City pays non-resident price, but they sell it to their employees for half price.
Yes.
So we're still getting non-resident prices.
Yes.
Yes. So, but it was misleading because the resident simply says, because that's not how they advertised it.
Yeah.
How they advertised it, the resident.
We are getting non-resident prices for what
exactly.
their residents.
We're making our money. I mean, as far as the income we bring in for that individual or families is that of a non-resident. It is being for lack of a better term, the city is paying for. There you go. The city pays for it.
And we
as far
don't
as the-
subsidize for our own people, but Riverdale has enough revenue generation from probably sales tax that they can basically pay for that.
Probably cheaper than building their own complex.
Exactly.
As far as the aquatic center goes, Riverdale does rent it 3 times a year, one in June, one in July, and one in August.
They pay full price for that.
Absolutely. And in full disclosure, West Haven rents it for a night too. You know, we have, I believe there's 72 nights that are available to be rented there, and we almost fill every one of them up. You know, I mean, I think the last time I looked, which was a couple weeks ago, there was about 5 days left, you know, for the entire year. But those things do happen. You know, and I'll answer a few of your questions you brought up. In FY17, and I'll work on getting you the numbers, it was swimming lesson sign-up week at the complex, which is always a fun and challenging week. But we had 95,572 people walk in the door at the complex. Not all of those are necessarily paying members of full price, and I'll give you an example of that. Roy High swim meets generated about 2,100 people. We don't charge admission for parents to go watch their kids. We don't do anything like that. We do not run this program as much as we rent out our space. Karate, they bring in about 2,500 people a year to do a Saturday activity of karate classes. We charge for the facility, we charge them rent, but they bring about 2,500 kids in. We had about 17,000 paid admissions last year. We had 29,728 pass holders come through the doors. Now that might be, if I have a pass, I could go 6 days a week. That each time I went would count as a tally. You know, to break down some of those in a little bit more, so we all can understand. We have about 846 passes that we sell in a year, and that could be a month pass, that could be a 6-month pass, that could be a year pass. 300 of those participants of that 846 are non-residents. 546 are. We do charge a non-resident rate across the board, whether it be subsidized by Riverdale City or other places. We do have a non-resident rate when it comes to monthly passes. As far as day admissions, we do not. We do not. And that is true at the Aquatic Center as well. We don't ask where you're from. If you come in and say, I want to come work out at the complex, depending on your age, it's $3 or $4. You know, younger kids are cheaper, senior citizens are cheaper, everybody else is $4. At the Aquatic Center, it's $5.50. If you want to buy a 10-punch pass at the Aquatic Center, you can get that if you are a Roy resident for $35. If you are a non-Roy resident, it is $45. As far as other programming that I'm responsible for, in my recreation department, we do not have any out-of-resident fees across the board. Baseball, football, basketball. Football is a little bit different. Let me stop right there. We're part of what is known as the WFFL, and they tell people where they have to play. But none of the programs that I operate there in the recreation department have an out-of-resident fee. As far as another question you brought up, soccer, softball, lacrosse, some of these entities that use our field, we do charge them. You know, there is a fee paid. We get $1 per member from an AYSO, they've got about 1,000 kids playing, and we get $1 per kid. As far as comp soccer goes, we anticipate bringing in about $7,000 in revenue for their time in renting our field space.
Are we competitive on the AYSO compared to other cities?
You know, we're looking into that right now, and we've been looking into it. As far as the other field rentals for baseball, softball, big field rentals for soccer, yes, we're very competitive.
From what I see at Emma Russell, I mean, AYSO impacts that park heavily.
You know, the biggest enemy to turf is compaction, and there's no doubt we get a lot of compaction on our turf at all of our parks, frankly speaking. And soccer uses it well.
And
they
I'm not
use it a
talking
lot.
just using the field, leaving trash, garbage.
We've had a few issues with them. We've got a pretty good relationship with the leadership of AYSO. We had some pretty stern conversations with them, and they've been they've worked with us much better
I
lately.
notice there's a lot of garbage cans down there now, so there's no excuse that they can't.
We try. We're trying to give them a roadmap, and they've been better since we've had a conversation with them. They've been better.
So here's the piece that I think hopefully we're leading to, and I think, Jason, you're kind of framing this. What does the council want to do? Because the challenge might very well, let's put anything in perspective. Every employee of Roy City has free access to the recreational facilities. And I think the motto was, Jason, I think you made comment was, we're really trying to institutionalize healthiness within our workforce, which I think is appropriate. We see that happening in lots of businesses. What's interesting about that is that all of their family members, supposedly immediate family, have free access to those facilities as well. And what really got me interested in this would be is any previous employee in good standing has free access to the facilities, okay? So my concern fundamentally is that for employees and for employees' families, I think we're offering some pretty nice stuff, okay, for little or no cost. Surely a lot better than we even ask for the residents who are paying for that. And we have to kind of balance all that. But the other piece that I think is important to understand, and really the heart of this is that are we being really gracious in terms of what we do to people who do not live here and do not pay Roy City taxes? And if the answer to that question is we ought to look at it, council, then I think, Jason, what we say to Jason and Travis would be is, let's run the numbers. Let's look at this. And if we believe that we are under maybe the competitive, as you suggested, Councilmember Paul, that maybe where we sit on these, and it requires then the council to take a relook at all non-resident, okay, payment of the great resources we bring to the table, then let's have them have that conversation. But I think the whole purpose of this discussion would be is that we have to look at how we're going to generate revenue to help sustain it. Because my biggest concern, and I think every concern of the council members going to budget session, is that I've looked at all of the data, and the data shows we're not generating any more revenue. Everything is flatlined. And yet we have these demands and requirements that we have that we're providing. And if the answer to the question is so we can retain it and have the best parks and have the best aquatic center, is that we get ourselves aligned to where we should be in the non-residential payment, so they pay their fair share, then I think we need to have that conversation. And so the council really has an opportunity here to simply says, do we want the city to go ahead and come back, provide us some details so we can make an informed decision?
Okay, I agree with that. I think, yes, we need to look at our fees and see what we're paying. So when you've got, how do you determine a non-resident versus a resident? Do you ask for ID purposes and you look at their driver's license and you see what the address is on it? Will it say Hooper? Will it say what?
Exactly. When somebody signs up for any sort of membership, obviously they're going to have to fill out paperwork. We're going to need their address, emergency contact, all sorts of things.
That's not a day rate. You're not.
No, day rate. Like I said, a day rate. There is no distinguishing
Does it make
between.
sense to raise the day rate for non-residents?
I think I wouldn't want to get painted in a corner with any. I think there's a lot of options we can look at, and I think there's some things we can look at between. If you look to raise people, if you look to lower people, you know, I mean, I think there's there's possibilities across the board. The one thing that is, you know, I think that I need to say is it's a competitive world. And I think it's important we understand that across the board, whether we're talking the recreation department, whether we're talking the recreation complex, whether we're talking the aquatic center, there is other opportunities for people to start exploring. So if we're too robust in raising for non-resident people, they're going to explore those options. And whether that be we have less people, we have less revenue, I think it's legitimate questions, and I think it should be a dialogue and a conversation. But I don't feel comfortable giving a recommendation right now of which of those I think we should try to follow.
So Travis, can I just ask, like, when you talk about walk through the doors, that we don't differentiate?
As far as
how many of those would you say we have?
95,000 people in 2017.
Yeah, but they're not paying. They're not always
They're not
paying.
daily. They're not. They're not the daily ones.
Exactly.
No, and that's a great question, and I had something here. Give me a few seconds. Paid admissions. I can tell you this for FY17. This is just walking in the door. 17,317.
Okay, so let's say half of those. Let's say just half of those are Roy City residents and half are not. Then we're at about 8,000, 9,000. Let's even go
Sure.
9,000.
If you wanted to say half.
So if you raise them $2 even, which would be a pretty significant raise, you'd now be at $18,000 more revenue. That's not significant. That's not a whole lot. That's not enough to go against a $600,000 loss.
Oh, agreed. But I think it goes to the heart of this conversation. It says this, which has got me shocked. 95,000 people walked into that facility in 2017, and he can account to 17,000 of that being paid.
But how many were there just observing?
No, and I shouldn't say just paid.
Yeah, there's other payments that take place.
Admissions.
Yes, I understand that. But it's breaking out the data, looking at the deepness of the data. What does the data tell us? Because I go back to my comment would be is that part of the challenge would be is that we have, please don't misunderstand, but I don't have a problem saying the way I see it, is if we're basically offering previous employed employees free access because they left in good standing, is that a good decision for the city? I mean, we're not talking about Roy residents. We're talking about people who can live, and most of them do, outside of Roy City, but they were in good standing when they left. Is that a good decision, business decision?
We have between Roy, to maybe answer your question, maybe add to a little more confusion. Of all the employees and their families and employees who have retired and passed good standing, we have 229 of them that have cards and or memberships.
Okay. So here's what I would ask, and I know there's lots to ask, but I think it's hard to really answer the right questions until we have the data. So council, here's what I'd ask you to consider. Can we ask Travis and Jason to run the numbers? Just give us some, and bring in recommendations, because I think Travis has some real insight to the realities of all this stuff, of what's happening, and give us some comparisons. And then bring over the next couple of months, let's get through the budget session, let's get through some stuff, and come back to the council and simply says, here's what the data is telling us, and come in with some recommendations. And then let the council decide whether or not it's worthy of going ahead and considering raising some rates for non-residents or not. And I think Council Member Burrell's points well. He says, man, if it's only $8,000, it's not even worth us wasting any time. But if the data points to where we might be able to help them become, more efficient, more effective in terms of their ability to sustain, let me repeat this, to sustain the very great services we provide to the community, even outside of Roy, then we ought to consider giving him the option to have that kind of revenue stream so he can sustain it. My comment centers only on this. We do not necessarily afford our own residents who are paying for this facility the same benefits, we afford previous employees, employee families, and in this case, even the people in Riverdale. And I'm wondering if, in fact, we need to have a second look to see if there's an option here we ought to consider. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Okay.
you made the point to be able to
I'm
look
still
at.
confused about the residents of Riverdale, because we are affording them.
Yeah, we as a city are collecting a non-resident rate, but they're getting a benefit from their city.
So I can't help but, I mean, they could say they can come for free if they
Yeah.
want to pay for it.
They could. What was interesting with the comment would be is, and this is how I kind of took it because it was directed at me, Jan, was why doesn't the city do the same thing for its own residents? If Riverdale can come into our own our facilities and literally pay for all of that and give it to them for half price, then where they're already paying for it out of their own taxes, their argument would be is, why doesn't Roy then cut the prices in half for their own residents who are already paying out of property tax to sustain that? And that's an awful interesting argument.
Because we don't have the same tax base they have. Is that correct?
Well, and also, I think Councilmember Paul hit on it. Key was that's a lot cheaper for Riverdale to do than to actually have an aquatic center,
Right.
have the people to
Exactly.
employ and all the maintenance and the management. I think that's a critical factor in that.
It is. I mean, I've talked to the mayor of West Haven at length and some of their council members. You know, I don't know that they offer the same thing, but for them, it's easier for them to utilize our facilities because they don't have to build them. They don't have to maintain them.
It's the same reason I don't buy a vacation home, because I can stay in a hotel as cheap
Exactly.
as I.
No, it's a great thing.
And I brought up
same
the fact
reason.
at one time, maybe it's time to approach some of the cities around us and, you know, do we update the complex? Do we do something else and we make it? I grew up in Bountiful, and Bountiful used to have the Bountiful Recreation Center. Well, now it's called the South Davis Community Recreation Center because each city pitched in and they went from small to a very big, very nice complex. And each city contributes to it.
Exactly.
Each city helps manage it, and it works well. We know it's time to upgrade the complex. We looked at some different figures. None of them really made sense. But do we go together with the other cities, Hooper, West Haven, Riverdale, and say, okay, do you want to do a community recreation center, build it down by the golf course, and we all help fund it?
And I think recreation districts, if you can pull them off, they make perfect sense. They do. You're investing, and you're all sharing the load. There are challenges, and there are things that I think would have to be looked at as far as that goes. I just, for me, and I think it's important that we are a city that provides these kind of services. I realize I'm standing on a soapbox now, and some of it might be self-serving, but I take great pride in the fact that I go to the complex daily, and I see senior citizens staying healthy. I see the youth playing basketball and doing things so they're not in trouble. I watched us sign up probably over 1,200 kids in the last 48 hours so we can teach them how to swim. These are valuable services that I think are important to be a part of our community.
Well, and I agree with you, and I support it because I'll tell you, one of the things that can get you into a political pickle, you think of losing $600,000 a year. I made the comment multiple times during my campaign, if that was my business, I'd shut it down. You wouldn't believe how many phone calls almost little ladies wanting to threaten me about shutting down their
you know,
facilities.
it's
So, I agree. I mean, it's a great service we provide. We've just got to figure out a way to make it.
How to
in its own
sustain
way,
it. I think that's
is
the
a
biggest
very.
thing.
I get it. It's a very passionate subject
It is.
across the board for a lot of people. I have no problem putting together some numbers and coming back to you guys
Please.
with some stuff.
Yeah, I think it's more or less just how to. I think the mayor's point is basically just how can we improve some revenue? You know, how can we increase it? How can we improve it? Travis, I'm right there with you. My mom goes. She's one of the silver sneakers, and goes there because she needs to get some physical therapy in. I've used it. All my kids have done swimming lessons there. To me, I'm the same way. I talk to multiple senior citizens that, use that facility. I want to make sure that it is a sustainable service that we do provide for our citizens. And I do understand that as a city, we will come to where we have to subsidize some part of it in order to have this service for our citizens. But can we improve and increase some of the revenue?
And I think that is the heart of this question is I
agree.
think we need to look at a lot of things. You know, I think there needs to be a look at fees. I think there needs to be a look at programming.
Yeah.
Some of you have mentioned the possibility of sponsorships across the board. I think in the world I represent, that's kind of where we might need to start looking.
Perfect.
Have
Councilman
we-
Sexton.
Yeah, have we hit a ceiling in the last couple of years regarding operation costs? Or are they?
You know, the city has been very generous over the years contributing to the infrastructure of the facility. There's been new boilers, there's been new fans, new roofs, new basketball court, new weight room floor. I'm superstitious. I'm a baseball guy, so I don't like to say, oh, I don't expect anything. You know, I mean, I feel good infrastructure-wise where we are. We've done new lighting and different things in there.
Is that included on the $600,000
Yeah,
difference?
part of it over the last few years. There's no doubt that capital represents a good part of over the last few years.
I think the challenge we've got, Brian, is that it's a 47-year-old building.
Well, that's true. We'll
And-
have something every year, but we won't have.
But at some point in time, it's going to age out. And I think the city has to step up, and it's a step-up decision. I think Councilmember Yeoman's point's well taken. There's an expectation that the city provide that kind of service, and it would be hard for this council to deviate from that. But at some point in time, when it gets to 50 and 54 and 55 years old, you start to run into some really major issues. I mean, the White Center, correct me if I'm wrong, they've got major cracks in the actual swimming pool that there's some challenges right now whether or not they can even functionally use it because it's got so old. And there's decisions now being saying, much like other cities had to do, simply closing them, in large part maybe because of safety issues. So I think the purpose of this as we continue the discussion is, let's figure out a plan that's going to work for this city, what's good for this city. Let's take the small ones like we're asking right now because it's a small issue. We can work these little ones. But at some point in time, we have to step and ask and says, what do we want that complex to be when it grows up? And if that's a conversation that talks about brand new, if it talks about relocating, some of the limitations, Travis, we know is you can't get good parking this time of year in there. And the people I've talked to says, I don't go there anymore because I can't find parking. Well, we need them to go there. And we need a solution. And summer's not the only time they should go there. So we need to step up and decide what do we want it to be and how we're going to expand that and make it work and give Travis the opportunity to have a facility that's going to last him, 10, 20, 30 years, that's going to be a viable facility. Otherwise, my concern is at some point in time, we're going to have to face the inevitable. It's aged out. And we can't sustain it anymore, and he needs a new facility or something else to make it work for this community. So are we okay with, from a council, let's ask the city then as an action, please, if you can, Jason, let's run the numbers. Give us some idea. And to be honest with you, Travis, this is important. You know this industry better than anybody. Come back with some recommendations. We're going to listen to everything you say. And if you basically says, hey, I think we can do this, or I think we can't do that for a lot of good reasons, we're going to listen. But let's take a look, and I think we'll do our due diligence to our residents that says, we're looking at all options to make sure that we're fair and make sure we're equitable, and most importantly, we can provide the revenue that the city needs to sustain these kind of events and these kind of facilities. My biggest concern is we have to find revenue streams to help make that happen. We cannot start closing down our facilities or letting people off because we don't have the revenue to sustain it. We need solutions. This might be an option, Travis, if it's okay. The council's asking you to help us put this together, would you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Okay.
You have a question?
Please.
I know people that go to the complex and love it. Myself, I don't think it's right for
And you bring up a good point, and I think the analysis when the city gets it and brings to the council, will look at all those options, and see if it's something that really can work for us, that doesn't hamper our ability to retain the people who continually use it, but allow them to pay a fair market share of the expenses that we require to sustain it. And if we can work that, I think it'll work out well. Well, okay, that's an interesting point. City manager, other comments? Please.
Okay.
Other things you wanted to discuss?
Yes, North Park. Exciting news about George
okay.
Wallen Park. George Wallen Park parking lot between the junior high, Joe Paul's got me all flustered. George Wallen North Park. The parking lot is going to be between North Park and the.
That's okay. Go
and
ahead.
the park is getting started this weekend.
Oh, is that right?
They
Start to grub it.
Grub work Friday. They'll start hitting it up as early as next week.
Perfect.
Yep. The pavilion, concrete work is in the works. Footings. We did seed the west field, and then by the end of the week or the first of next week, the west field's going to be, or the east field's going to be seeded. And then we're going to start working on sod in the next few days too. So really moving very quickly, which is very good news.
When were we looking at doing kind of our grand
Rededication.
opening?
I think
open
it was
house,
around
whatever
Roy
we call
Days.
it?
Yeah.
Is it Roy Days?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's important for us, the name of the park being George Wallen North Park, to have the family involved. And we've been fortunate to work real hand in hand with George Wallen's grandson, Jory, and we've kind of tentatively set something near Roy Days week. He's talked with his grandmother, and that week appeared to work for her. That's kind of what our departmental goal has been, is to do something in conjunction with the great celebration of Roy Days.
Perfect.
Okay.
You're going to put it in your agenda then?
Yeah,
Part of the
it's-
process? Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Roy Cemetery. Our parks guys, Superintendent Steve, and then his guys Casey and Brady, talked about maybe an idea with the cemetery, and I think it's a great idea. So props to the parks guys for this. If we want more plots, maybe take out the driveway that runs north and south. If we took
I'm
that
gonna have to
out, we
drive
could
over
get
there to
about
see what it's
80 more burial plots by just taking that out. So that would be big. And
Okay,
maybe that's
so
a
you're gonna have
bridge.
to, yeah, I'm gonna have to drive over and
I'll
see
The
it.
people
drive
that
you
would
over.
walk down through there, though, that would be a big walk.
Yeah, so you have already the little driveway that runs east and west, and you can just walk along that and then go to wherever plot you need to go to. But there's also a big road that starts at, let's see, that's 52, so probably 53, 50 south, and it runs north along that. If we took that out,
But
that
if you
could
have a funeral, Jason, where do you put all those cars?
You do it in that larger circle.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a
so-
big circle that goes in there, and on the street fronts. That's
Yeah,
about all
because
you
it's
can do.
not, the cemetery
It's
is
not
not
that
really
big.
big
It's
north
not that
and
big.
south.
Yeah.
And they do have that little driveway, so they would just park and then you would just walk wherever you're gonna go. It's not a far walk at all, maybe.
Oh, I walk
I mean-
longer at the ones in Ogden than I do at the one at Roy, even without
Just as
that.
an idea, if we want to bridge
Yeah.
that gap,
I-
be,
It's a good suggestion and a good compromise for now, yeah, to be able
gives
to
Brian
increase
hope.
it. Yeah. So you said 80 more plots we could get in there?
Yes.
Are they doubled or are they single stacked?
single.
They're single stacked. Can we
You could do
do
double.
double?
You don't have I don't think you have a water table that high in
Do we
Roy,
have
do
any
you?
lawn crypts there that are double depth?
No.
I know at the cemetery, I used to be the sexton of, we had those, and it worked pretty good because, one plot and you can bury a husband or wife, and wham,
Is-
bam, thank you, ma'am, you're done.
Is
But I
there-
think the key was
Move the microphone away from you.
Did you?
So you did. So
Side
they
by
are
side or on
I thought-
top?
On
on
top of
double
each
plots,
other.
I thought you
Oh.
meant.
Deep, yeah, I mean deep.
They call them a lawn crypt. They're too deep. So the first person you bury deeper.
Yes.
Close it in. When the next
Okay.
person dies, you open it back up, put them on top.
So that is, okay.
Okay.
And you can do that right now. I mean, if somebody owns a plot and then they want to double it,
And maybe that
Okay.
It's
number
doable.
with
I've done it.
Steve is 40, but if you double them, then
You
that's
get
what
80?
make it 80.
Okay.
So-
I guess, council, with that comment, would you like the city to go ahead and explore this a little bit further, come back with
yeah,
a presentation and discuss
yes.
it?
I
We
agree.
can go, Jan, we can go drive by and look at it.
I think I know
Okay.
it. I'd have to go look, but
Okay.
Yeah, I
I
just
think I
wanna
know
walk
because
it.
I have
Right.
family that's buried
Yeah,
right
just
there.
walk it.
Excellent.
Off
Is
that
there
north-south
any,
driveway.
there's no way with it completely being, I mean, you've got plots all around. There's no way to build, what is it called, the
a mausoleum.
mausoleum?
I was just thinking that.
Is there any way to build that to be able to do like cremations or anything like that?
Do you have a call for that? Do you have people that want that?
Well, I mean, to bury a person is around 10,000 cheapest.
It's a little bit more than
You're
that.
up.
I just
So
did
a
that.
lot of people are doing a lot more cremation now because of the cost to bury somebody. So I didn't know if there was.
The cemetery I used to run on the hill in Bountiful, I would have never thought because of the community that a mausoleum would have worked. And it's an outside mausoleum, it's not an indoor. They put one up, they were sold immediately. So if you have a little section in one corner that you can build a mausoleum, people buy them, they're.
Would you then come to the council with some ideas? Here's the reason for it. We need a bridge. We're built
Yeah, we
out
need a
in
bridge.
terms of that plots. We got a bunch of people asking council members, I've lived in Roy my whole life. I want to be buried here. We do not have an option in Roy at this moment. This may give us a bridge until we can work the things we're working already to put another
Some land.
cemetery in. And
Yeah,
so
some land.
let's, I think it's a great idea, Jason, but let's come back in with specifics so that we understand it, and then let's see if that's something we'd like to do, okay?
Sounds
Thank you.
good. And then last thing, Joe and I will be going to Vegas this Sunday for that ICSC business conference. We are going to meet with our contract, Randy Sant, down there, and I did email Woodbury to see if we can't schedule a time to meet with them. And so that should be good, and hopefully some good information that we can come back and say Home Depot's coming in.
That would be good.
That'll be great.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Mayor and council reports. Council, any comments, thoughts?
One comment I have, and unfortunately he slipped out, he probably knew I was gonna ask you. Last council meeting, I brought up the fact of eliminating car washes from our ordinance. I know Steve was given the task to talk about it. I don't know if it was discussed much in planning commission. Just curious where we're at on that. The reason I bring it up and why it's such a topic is, not only do we have enough, but we've had somebody since come in with an interest of wanting to build one on 1900 in Roy.
And take out,
I wasn't gonna say that, but take out Warren's.
take out
So we're gonna
Warren's.
lose a great sit-down restaurant and put another car wash. It makes me ill.
3 buildings down from the currently building the new one.
And kitty corner across the street from the one that's on Riverdale Road, I mean.
I think what's kind of funny about that is that I think these car washes came in different times. So like one I think we approved a long time ago, another one came in, and they seem to be built right now, you know, so it's like, oh my gosh, here we got the car washes. You know what I mean? But they were approved at different times, so at the time it didn't seem like, oh, that's okay, you can put the car wash in. Didn't realize, okay, later we're gonna have another car wash, and now they're building at the same time. Yes, didn't know about this one. If that's the case,
And
yeah.
we can't stop
need
it
to
right
look
now
at,
because
yeah,
it's
need
permitted
to look at
use.
something.
So until we kill it in the ordinance, people, and I wonder if people aren't hearing me talk about it and saying, I'm gonna build a car wash in Roy. Yeah.
Keep your voice
Well,
down.
then, Jason, if you would,
Just do
in answer to the question from a council member, would you just provide then the council status and where we are in
So I
terms of?
believe Steve talked about it, and it's on the planning commission's next agenda to take care of that.
Okay,
Okay, perfect.
perfect.
It'll be them, and then hopefully it'll come back to us in June
Yeah.
5th.
Okay. Council, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, good meeting, a lot of discussion. Anything, follow-up, anything? Okay, having seen none, make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second,
Joe did.
Joe did.
Thanks,
Second.
Joe. Do I have a second?
Jan's got it.
Okay,
Second.
Carleen, second. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. No opposed.